All right, welcome to the Noahide Nexus once again for Parsha Bechukotai. I think I have that right. Bechukase. Anyway, glad to have you here. Weekly Torah study for mainly B'nai Noach. You know the folks out there who take it upon themselves to keep the seven, at best, keep the seven, and study Torah each week right here on Google Plus. I am James, and you can check out more of these at the Idol Smasher YouTube page. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and be coming up on our third here once we get to Devarim. Tonight's Parsha portion, if this is your first time tuning in, it is a Torah portion. In other words, a section of these the 5 books of Moses. A portion, Parsha, of the Pentateuch, Torah, 5 books of Moses. And every week it's a scheduled reading that goes from Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah. And we do this every year, and it's a cycle of readings, a cyclical set of readings, whatever. And also there's a Haftorah at the back, which we'll get to in a little bit, which is actually Torah that you can find in the rest of the Hebrew Bible. We'll get to that shortly as well. Again, I'm starting out alone, and no one's showing up at the moment. We get them. Sometimes they're late. Sometimes they're early. Most of the time we're early, but the reading for today that we're going to be looking over, plus a topic coming up, we'll get to that in just a second here. The reading that we're going to be going over today is in Leviticus, Vayikra. This is Leviticus chapter 26, starting with verse 3. And we're going to read all the way through till the end of Leviticus itself, the end of Vayikra. It's a rather short reading. Blessings, warnings. Leviticus has been a book of priestly duties, be it that which deals with the Mishkan, the priests, the Cohen, the Kohen Gadol, and then what it means to be a holy nation. So you have priestly laws, or laws that pertain to the priestly aspect of Israel, let alone the priests and high priest of Israel. We'll get into numbers here at another time, but we are wrapping up Leviticus now, which is often seen, I think, as a very dry read. When you get into it, Leviticus is far from a dry read. And you really have to use your brain when you read Leviticus 2. When we went through this, the very first year we went through this here at the Noahide Nexus, Leviticus was boring people because it was a lot of descriptions about what priests wear. Well, who cares, basically, right? And that's the general Western attitude is, well, who cares? What's that matter to anything? It matters. It means everything. And you just have to pay attention. I will be reading this evening from the Stone Edition Chumash. I also like to get out my Sonsino Hertz edition, and of course, when Pam gets in here, which I'm sure she will be here briefly, she likes that Sonsino. So I kind of take the Stone Edition because it's a little newer to me. I had a Hertz well before I had a Stone, and Pathav Avraham sent me a Stone Edition, and there's just a lot of goodies in it that I have yet to finish exploring. So I stick with the Stone. Personal preference. Everyone needs one, by the way, and I would suggest if there are three books anybody would need to begin this journey of Torah study, you really need 3. You need 5 books of Moses. You need a Chumash, CH Chumash. You need a Chumash. Stone Edition is probably a good idea. It's a little more modern. No translation is going to be everything you want it to be. The Divine Code, which is, unless you can read Hebrew, I would say the Sefer Sheva Mitzvot Hashem. If you can't read Hebrew, the Divine Code is basically the codification of the laws in Torah that apply to all men at all times, not just priests or Jews or just men or just women or ger. This is universal law, and it's basically the distillation of everything that applies to everybody, including non-Jews and Jews alike. The Divine Code, and a Siddur. I believe Rabbi Moshe Weiner has one. He's the one who wrote the Divine Code. Also, I use the Service from the Heart, Renewing the Ancient Path of Biblical Prayer and Service. You can pick one up right now at okbns.org. Rabbinic approbation and whatnot. So we'll just get into going through the Parsha until other folks show up and we get this thing rolling along. If it's just me, and it's been that way once before, it will be a short presentation, but it will be a presentation. Here we go. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has chosen Israel from all the peoples and given them your Torah at Mount Sinai to be a light unto the nations, so that everyone would know how to serve you, our God, creator of all things, and by doing so merit everlasting life. Once again, if you're following along at home, it is Leviticus chapter 26, starting with verse 3. Why verse 3? Well, chapters and whatnot were actually a Christian invention. That came about later on when the Romans and the Greeks had I think the Greeks are the ones who inserted it first, gave us chapters, and they don't always meet up when it comes to Parsha study. But there you have it. The whole Parsha starts off with, I think, a great point that people miss, especially Westerners coming out of religion or still in religion. Yeah, that was just a promise that God made to no longer flood the earth. So what? You say, well, it's a covenant. Covenants, or covenant, as we say in the States a lot of the times. A covenant is a contract. It has to take place between two different parties. Hashem tells us who those parties are in Genesis 9, but for most people think, oh, that's just God's promise to us because we're, the jewel of creation, right? So we don't need it. We don't need to keep any laws. But I think it kind of, I'll just start us off with the first one. If you follow my decrees and observe my commandments and perform them, then I will provide your rains in their time, and the land will give its produce, and the tree of the field will give its fruit. That right there. If you follow my decrees and observe my commandments and perform them, I will provide your rains in their time. There's no way you can really get around that. So yes. Considering that deals with all human beings, he starts off with water and rain and keeping my covenants. That's a little Noahidic plug in the first sentence of the Parsha. Aaron J. Dubs, Shalom, Virkamen, Bienvenue, welcome. Come on in. Happy to have you here.
How's everything?
Better now that I'm seeing y'all. This is not an easy hangout to carry with one person.
I hear you.
I missed you on Monday, Meshuggah Monday.
Yeah. It's all right.
I got a class with the rabbi. And
that's good.
This was Rabbi Dov Neal. He's been out of the game for a while. He's been battling some stuff and come out on top again. And he was the fellow whose class I first attended after I decided I wasn't going to convert, and I walked away for a while. When I came back and had the opportunity, it was Rabbi Dov who was kind of waiting for me, I guess. Not waiting for me, but that's where I met a lot of people and really began to take all of this much more seriously than I had ever before. And it's been it's been no less than a blessing.
That sounds good, yeah, good. And I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. Glad you have something to go to every Monday. A little commentary on that first sentence of, if you keep my commandments and follow my statutes. Commentary for asceticism teaches that keep my commandments means things like
somebody.
As she is.
All right. Everything's all right now. Can we continue?
Yeah, go for it.
So the commandments will be the rational things like do not murder, do not steal. But statutes, asceticism teaches that things like that doesn't make sense, like the red heifer or mixing wool, supernatural commandments. So if you keep the commandments and walk in God's statutes, you get extra blessings.
and the rains will come in their time. Pam, I was just saying telling J-Dubs here the first everyone went dark. I don't know where everybody went.
I'm here. I'm listening.
Good. There you
I'm still here.
my screen went dark. I was just telling J-Dubs that it really sounds like the first sentence of the Parsha this week pretty much gives the answer to people who think that the Noahide code, Noahide law, is just a promise. We get that from religion, that it's just a promise that God won't flood the earth, and never consider a covenant as a two-way street, a two-way agreement. And yet it makes it really clear here in the first sentence, if you follow my decrees and observe my commandments, which we just got what commandments and decrees were, and perform them, then I will provide your rains in their time, land will give its produce, and the tree of the field will give its fruit. It just seems like a little Noahide plug. I hear rains and commandments, I go back to Noah.
Sure, that's the first thing the first thing Adam prayed for. Rain.
Really?
Yes, that's the first prayer. Was rain. Everything was planted. God created everything the way it was. All the seeds, all the trees, everything was planted. All that needed to be done was a human to pray. And then everything sprouted. Like kicked off.
And he prayed for rain.
He prayed for rain. The first prayer ever was Adam's prayer for rain. Yeah?
That's kind of cool.
Who knew? Yeah, pretty cool.
Go ahead, Pam.
I was just asking what the source on that was. Larry had a question about it.
The source for that would be, off the top of my head, I do not know. Off the top of my head. I think I learned it in a Hasidicism class, I want to say a few months ago.
If you come across it, would you share?
I will, of course, yes.
I was just wondering how it was a garden if there was nothing there but that,
Larry was saying he was curious how it was a garden if there wasn't anything there already growing. But we have
That's a good
gardens
question, yeah.
that's not growing. It's planted.
It actually gets even more crazy. What I learned in the Zohar is that actually God planted Adam as a seed in the garden. He's a seed himself. But that gets into the mystical aspect, and we shouldn't touch on that. But
Yeah, that's a whole nother study.
yeah,
I got to go on that for a second. Genesis 2 is perplexing to a lot of people. God gives you the general overview in first chapter, but the second chapter, before anything was grown, he makes physical contact with the earth, or at least that's what's implied, I should say. And then man was formed, and he did it from the earth. That makes perfect sense.
It does.
Blessings and blessings and blessings. I will provide peace in the land, and you will lie down with none to frighten. I will provide peace in the land, and you will lie down with none to frighten you. I will cause wild beasts to withdraw from the land, and a sword will not cross your land. You will pursue your enemies, and they will fall before you by the sword. 5 of you will pursue 100 of your enemies. Try that again. 5 of you will pursue 100, and 100 of you will pursue 10,000. And your enemies will fall before you by the sword. I will turn my attention to you. I will make you fruitful and increase you. And I will establish my covenant with you.
just an emphasis on you. It's always whenever God gives a decree or when he says, I am your Lord, your God, keep my commandments, it's always singular. It's always, you're supposed to read it as if God is talking to you personally.
Well, he is. It's an individual relationship as well as a collective relationship. It's both. Is my mic acting up?
No,
Nope.
you
Okay.
said it's both.
Absolutely.
It's good to see you on camera, though, James. I thought you weren't a camera guy anymore.
So you're forced to look at me.
Hey, no sweat off my back.
Close your eyes, and it won't hurt as much, I promise.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna lower it. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be Google Plus cool. See, Aaron, welcome back. Did you get your mic working, sir?
Yes,
Well-
I'm here. Sorry about that.
There he is.
Here he is.
I'll turn you up just in case. Okay. Here's a word that I'm not familiar with. Every year I have to learn something new, and as soon as like I said one time, I'll say it again. When I got this Stone Edition Chumash, I opened up and read it and realized I know nothing. There's stuff I was taught and I forget completely about. The word is tochacha. If you will not listen to me and will not perform these commandments, if you consider my decrees loathsome, and if your being rejects my ordinances, so as not to perform all my commandments, so that you annul my covenant, then I will do the same to you. I will assign you a panic, swelling lesions, and burning fever, which cause eyes to long and souls to suffer. You will sow your seeds in vain, for your enemies will eat it. I will turn my attention against you. You will be struck down before your enemies. Those who hate you will subjugate you. You will flee with no one pursuing you. Welcome, Rabbi.
Shalom.
Yeah, this reminds me of the blessings and the curses that we get. Not in this Parsha, but I like the fact that it's specific. I understand that you can take anything in Torah and you can expand on it and you can make your own mind up and you're free to do that. But he is kind of specific. When if you follow my decrees, the rains will fall on time. If that's not universal to all humans, I mentioned that earlier. But he describes blessing, he describes curses. What we follow you if you don't keep it, he's letting you know up front the punishments that you will endure. I think that's one thing I really like about Judaism is God gives you a list. He tells you what's up. He doesn't leave anything out, and he's good like that.
God is open with you and honest with you and up front. Nothing's hidden. I guess there is stuff that's hidden, but on the Peshat level, this is what it is. Either get on board with it or don't. Your choice. But this is what I said I like. This is what I want you to do. Either do it or don't. If you do, I'll bless you, and if you don't, I'll curse you. But it's your choice. I like that part. You can freely choose to do or not do. It's up to you.
Rabbi said it, nothing essential is hidden.
Well, sometimes we think something's hidden only because we don't understand yet. But then when we understand it, we're like, well, duh, right there it was.
Justin, welcome. Shalom. The seventh.
Hey, shalom, sorry.
Not a problem. The first series of punishment out of the Stone Edition Chumash. I think this is just interesting. I want to bring it up. The first series of punishments. On verse 16, which cause eyes to long. This expression indicates a yearning that extends over a long period of time, but which ends in frustration. In our verse, it means that you will long for the recovery of the afflicted person, but he will die. This, in turn, will cause your souls to suffer. That's Rashi. There's an Eastern philosophy called the setting sun, the philosophy of the setting sun. My little girl's balloons are in here now. I can see that. That's gonna bug me. The setting sun point of view. It's Pink Floyd's song. You know, you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking, racing around to come up behind you again. You can strive for the impossible. You can long for that sun. You know, it's like eating. It's compared to eating. It's like going to a restaurant, ordering a meal with way too much food, eating till you're full, and then throwing away the rest. That's a setting sun point of view. And that jumps out at me when I read 16, when I read the commentary. You long over you yearn over a long extended periods of time, and it ends in frustration no matter what. That's just human condition. If you don't strive to be a good person, that's pretty well human. You will sow in vain means you will sow your fields, but nothing will grow. And even if something does, your enemies will take it from you. That's Rashi as well. Sifra. The 7 sins will have brought the following 7 punishments. Something else I found that was interesting. This is verse. This is still in verse 16, isn't it? Let me make sure. The 7 sins will have brought the following 7 punishments: swelling lesions, burning fever, frustrated longing, sowing seeds that will produce crops for the enemy, being struck down before the enemy, being subjugated, and fleeing with no one pursuing you. That's Rabbi Bachya. I'm going to read them again because I think it sounds vaguely important.
And that's 7.
I like that last commentary.
What's that, Pam?
I'm not understanding. What are those again?
This is from In Vain. This is from verse 16 and 17. I'll read the verse again here. It says, "Then I will do the same to you. I will assign you a panic, swelling lesions, and burning fever, which causes eyes to long and souls to suffer. You will sow your seeds in vain, for your enemies will eat it. I will turn my attention against you. You will be struck down before your enemies. Those who hate you will subjugate you. You will flee with no one pursuing you." These are actually in the Stone Edition. It breaks down to 7 sins that will bring that will bring 7 punishments. Or, I would prefer, the way it looks to me, I would even say repercussions for your actions. Shalom path. I'll read them again. Swelling lesions, burning fever, frustrated longing, which hits me like a brick. Sowing seeds that will produce crops for the enemy. Being struck down before the enemy, being subjugated, and fleeing with no one in pursuit. Rabbi Bachya.
Oof.
I mean, that sounds like some people up the road here. I see at the gas station a time or two. I don't mean to be judgmental or anything like that. It just sounds... I actually know this is a common thing. I don't know about the fever and the lesions necessarily, but frustrated longing, anger. If there's anything that'll sow seeds that will feed your enemy, it's anger or wrath. Not even anger, but wrath. Being struck down before your enemy and being subjugated. I guess that's... When I say being struck down before your enemy, would that mean that your enemy gets to see you weak? It didn't say by your enemy, it says before your enemy. It's almost like a massive humiliation.
Mm.
Then my favorite, fleeing with no one in pursuit.
That's paranoid. Paranoia.
Been there.
Yeah, most of us have, I think. 14 and 15 is what's leading up to this. That's why I said, what are we talking about? Because you kept saying sins, but it sounds like punishments for sins, not the sins themselves. So if you go back to 14 and 15, it says, "But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, if you shall reject my statutes, and if your soul abhor mine ordinances, so that you will not do all my commandments, but break my covenant. Then I'm going to do all these things to you. So you have to be careful. You can't do just the statutes and not the ordinances. He's saying you have to do them all. Right?
Even the ones that don't make sense, even if it doesn't make sense to you, you still have to do it.
He doesn't say unless or but or until. He says do them or these things are going to happen to you. I like knowing where you stand with God. And he's very clear.
Well, I mean, this passage, if you think about it, anything you might do in life that requires some type of contractual agreement between one party and another has a bottom line. Do this, and this will happen. Don't do this, and this will happen. Now please sign here. That's basically that's what we're seeing here in a nutshell.
Exactly. But then what you have to figure out is what the statutes are, what the ordinance are. Most people understand the commandment part. What's the differences between statutes and ordinances and commandments? They're all obviously part of the covenant. Right?
So one of them, I can't remember if it's statutes or ordinances. One of them is essentially the commandments that we don't understand because they don't have a basis in human logic. Like a lot of things we can understand, right? We can say, I think it was said we can learn honesty from the bees and hard work from the ants and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, there are some things that are in Torah that don't have a human, like we can't just explain them away using logic